The definition of affordability, according to the federal government, is that you spend no more than 30% of your gross wage on your mortgage or on renting a property, and that doesn't include your utilities. We're at a position at the moment where places like Melbourne have 96% of the people in housing stress, so effectively using more than 30% of their gross income towards renting their property or paying mortgages. That can't continue. So the problem in Australia right now started back in 1881. And in 1881, a standard house of 5.5 people had about 35 or 45 square metres of house space. If we fast forward to 1960, where we had a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house built by a guy called L.J. Hooker, who was also a real estate agent but started as a builder. He built a house of 85 square metres, and at that point in time, they had 3.8 people in it. In 2017, Australia builds the largest houses in the world at 246 square metres. We have 12 million empty bedrooms tonight, and there's only 2.5 people in those houses. If I took my Australian builders to Hong Kong and I built an Australian house in Hong Kong, I would be able to fit 22.6 Hong Kong houses in my Australian house. That would be equivalent of 56.5 Australians living in that property. We've got an upside down marketplace. In one area of Australia, there are 3,700 people on a waiting list, and out of that 3,700, 60% of them are singles and 20% of them are couples. So that means essentially 80% of that waiting list requires a studio or micro apartment home. And in that marketplace, 3, 4 and 5 bedroom houses are 80% of the stock. Now, the reason people rent 3, 4 and 5 bedroom houses is because there's no other stock available on the market. So as a smart investor, you would be able to go out, create smaller spaces that people will quite happily rent. They can then afford to save some money and then eventually buy their own property as well. So when it comes to the affordable housing market, we always get the perception that as soon as we say affordable, we're talking about drug dealers, criminals, bikies, and every low end of the socioeconomic trail. Now the fact is that there are a huge number of residents that will come and rent your property that are doctors just out of university, lawyers, project managers, couples, 55 plus year old women, 70-year-olds that are living on less than $3.99 a week. And so the misconception here is that as soon as we do affordable accommodation, that it means that low socio is coming to the party. The fact is that affordable accommodation means spending 30% of your gross wage or less on the rental accommodation. So if you earn 50 grand a year, affordability is different to someone that earns $100,000 a year. And even if you did cater for the low socioeconomic, where sometimes we do, they're not bad people, they're just a different set of circumstances. So when it comes to investors being able to profit from affordable housing outcomes, the fact is that if you go and build a 4-bedroom house, you in some metropolitan cities will rent for about $400. However, if you broke that house up into 4 smaller compartments, it doesn't act as a ratio. So rather than each room renting for $100, it's actually going to rent for $200. So instead of getting $400 a week, if you break that house up into small micro apartments legally with full compliance, you'll double your rent, sometimes triple, sometimes quadruple the rent that you would normally coming in, whilst actually providing a product for the residents to benefit from because they can afford to live in there. You benefit as the investor, and of course community also benefits because government no longer needs to supply housing.